Okay, now I went ahead and drew this because it's kind of hard to draw it to the right proportions so that you'll actually get. In other words, you know the trouble I have with straight lines and stuff. This one, you've got to have the right angles on them, so I had to do a lot of erasing to show you how this works. So, let's see. There is going to be a point, and if I did this right, this should be under that point, and I didn't. Dang. Let me real quick change it. Okay, so this should come over further. See? Okay, this should come over to about there. Dot, 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 and here's the rest of the marginal revenue too. Okay, see? There we go. Ah. All right, so here's something. Get it right on the final. Get this right. Oligopolists don't like to change prices, and you find that. Car companies are oligopolists, right? Well, the car companies, they don't change their prices. I mean, somebody acts as the lead company, announce the price for next year's cars, and the others go, okay, now we'll announce ours. Now that we know the range they're going, we'll announce ours. And then they stay by it. The reason is there's a tendency to get price wars with oligopoly. Because if you lower your prices, well, you don't know what's going to happen. It could be that people will lower theirs too, and you'll have a price war. More than likely, if you lower your prices, there'll be a price war. If you raise your price, your rivals may not follow you. They may collude with you and go, hey, cool, you're going to double the price. That's fine, we'll double ours. Or they may say, nobody's going to buy yours, they're going to buy mine. And so you don't know, but you know that what you do will affect them. And how they react will affect you. By the way, you can get a doctorate in game theory, which is all about how to, make this move, and then that happens, and then they do this, and that happens, and game theorists are hired by the Pentagon for war game things, but also major corporations hire people with game theory. And my daughter at Tulane took an entire class in it. I've studied it. Our current president studied it when he worked on his MBA, and sometimes, regardless of what you think of President Trump or what he's doing, I'll tell you right now, he understands game theory. He'll make a move that's designed to elicit another move from you, and then when you make a move, he'll make another move, and he studied game theory. I know, because I've seen him make certain moves and said, classic. So, regardless of what his policies are, it's okay for me to tell you he understands game theory. And so game theory is something that you use in business, you use it in government, and understanding these things is important. For example, it's been 15, 20 years now, but when we had a few more phone companies than we have now, because there's been so many that have merged, but we used to have a company called MCI, and I think I forget who it was, MCI and another company. I'll say it was AT&T, just so I have another name, but I'm not sure, but I know one of them was MCI. Anyway, get back to this. They hired game theorists for their advertising campaign, and basically, one of the companies, let's say it was MCI. MCI hired hired these game theorists, and the game theorists said, well, here's the things they're likely to do. In response to your putting out this ad, they're going to respond with this or that. And so what they did is they filmed responses to either three. So they got the ad company to film 3 different really cool commercials. So they put out their ad, the other company responded with an advertisement saying, oh yeah, well, we're going to do this. And within an hour, MCI had a responding commercial out there. Of course, they threw away the other 2, but they had one. And so this whole idea of what are interdependent companies going to do is fascinating. And if you're good at math, you might think about studying game theory, because boy, you make big money if you can do that. So what I'm going to show you is what we call the kink demand curve, which basically shows you that you're kind of stuck at the price you're at. And here's why, okay? The demand, let's say the price is here. Ugh. So here's our price. Here's our quantity. Here. And that's supposed to be a vertical line. So if you raise your price, there's a big risk that your competitors won't meet it. Okay? So you raise your price, and your demand curve will look like this, including the dotted line part. The dotted line doesn't exist beyond, but it basically is an extension of this. And there's a marginal revenue that goes with the demand curve, because do you remember the demand, marginal revenue, that's supposed to be straight, and then you had your MC and ATC. Okay. So if you raise your price, your demand will be more elastic, because people don't have to buy from you, and they may not if your competitors don't raise their prices along with you. They may just laugh and say, go ahead and double your prices. We're going to get all your customers because we're not going to double our prices. And so there's a risk that your elasticity will be flatter at higher prices. So as your price goes up, the corresponding demand curve is going to be flatter. And then at prices lower, if you lower your price, you're pretty well guaranteed that your competitors will lower their price. So that's how you touch off a price war. In oligopolies, this happens. I love it when the airlines have price wars. Everybody starts lowering their prices, and then it gets ridiculous. But they're not the only ones. When car companies have price wars, they call them rebates. But we have had years when they just went crazy with rebates, trying to beat each other, because one of them wanted to lower prices, and the other said, hey, wait a minute, people are getting excited because you've got a $2,000 rebate. I'll have a $3,000 rebate. And then, we'll make ours $4,500, and you get these great rebates. But the companies don't like that. The consumers like that, but the companies don't like having a price war. So what that means is that you're not going to gain as many customers by lowering your price as you thought you would. You're not going to gain as many as you thought you would, because your competitors are going to lower their price as well, and you're not going to be able to steal from them because their prices will be low too. So you have a very inelastic demand curve below the price. So if you lower the price to say here, well then you're going to be on a demand curve that's much more steep. So I have this here to show that, well, it will have a corresponding marginal revenue as well. And so what we end up with is a marginal revenue that gets a gap in it. Well, let me get a black one here. You got marginal revenue comes down here, oops, and then this is one big marginal revenue, okay? Marginal revenue comes down here, and then it changes angle, and there's a gap in between. Because this one is the one that goes with this demand curve, and this one is the one that goes with this demand curve, and right there at that price, they break. Well, what's interesting is that costs can change a lot. If this is the marginal cost curve, costs can go up and down a lot. And it's still going to intersect the marginal revenue, so you've got your MC, which could move around a lot. It's still going to intersect this marginal revenue at the same quantity, which will lead to the same price. So even when costs change, it's intersecting with sort of a dotted line between those two parts of the marginal revenue curve. Because you've got that gap, and that gap is on the same quantity. So they will not change their prices often. Okay? And that's what you call the kink demand curve, which that's oligopoly. That's enough for now.